Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics. I am Evan Irwin, and we're getting started as we do each and every week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
What it do, baby boo?
And Reuben Bressler.
Well, I don't have a thing like that.
Reuben, you're the baby boo.
Oh, hey!
Sup, y'all?
I assume that's how I'm supposed to respond
That
to that.
was very good. That was very
So-
good.
I tried.
You know, sometimes you have one job. Sometimes you have one job, and that job is to try to stream on time, which we were, and for 3 wonderful, glorious minutes, got to hear me flail around trying to get YouTube authentication to work, but it's not working because reasons I don't know.
To be fair, I also couldn't do my one job, to be fair, because I am currently in Reno, Nevada, at the Peppermill Casino, and at what's called the Run It Up Reno celebration, which is for Jason Somerville's Twitch channel. And somewhat ironically, if you try to access Twitch while at the Run It Up Twitch celebration, because Twitch chat uses IRC, which is a very old and antiquated way to use chat, which is what the chat is built on Twitch, it thinks it's malicious Trojan software trying to demolish everything. So it quarantined my internet for 15 minutes while it decided that I wasn't a threat.
Well, Reuben, I did live in Reno for a year, and to be fair, most twitching that happens in Reno is not good.
Wow.
Agreed. Hashtag
Wow.
meth, not even once.
Wow. Hashtag not even once.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, personally, I'll try anything twice, but,
Hello.
Wow.
Hello. You look nice tonight, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Looking sharp, buddy.
I like that new H&M top.
Thank you. It says property of no one, which is very fitting.
Indeed it does. Very nice.
I need no man.
So we have ourselves the middle of yet another preview week. We've had so many in a
spoiled.
row.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's just new card on top of new card on top. Hey, there's some new cards. Oh, hey, there's some promos of the new card you saw last week. Oh, wait a minute, there's a new product coming out. Like, we are in the product cycle machine.
We are blessed.
Wizards has turned it all the way up, and we have brand new cards happening all the time. We have Commander 2016, the new Commander stuff. It's the 4-color commanders and the new partner mechanic, because what's better than a 4-color commander? 2 commanders that are 2 colors. So,
Right.
you get all the benefits, and Wizards doesn't have to fret over making a billion.
You get your bacon and your cheeseburger
on top.
Yes.
Right,
on top.
right
If
there.
you're
I
lucky.
really like
Wow.
the ability partner. I think it's a very clever way to do something that they haven't really had a way to do before, which is, as freeing as Elder Dragon Highlander / Commander is, you're still limited quite a bit by color requirements and certain facets of what your general can do, and the new partner mechanic is really cool. Is a really cool way of solving a lot of those issues.
I mean, what's
I
better
just
than
think
a
it's
100 card
ironic that we
format?
have I just think it's ironic that we have a mechanic called Partner, along with the illustrious debut of some iconic gay characters in the set. I think that's pretty
Right.
great.
Well, I mean, what's better than 100 card format? 101 card format.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
go.
That's how they fix that problem. They're like, well, how do
True.
we keep going? Well, you just make it bigger. You just increase the deck size. Aaron, you're welcome. All right, so we're here to talk about our spoiler for Commander 2016 that has
Yeah.
been graciously provided to us by Wizards of the Coast, and thank you very much
Thank
for that,
you.
of course. It is a blue card. It's a blue card that, if it didn't have the right wording, would probably be busted beyond all belief, because it could have potentially milled you 9 cards for 3 mana.
Right.
That's a dangerous thing, and netted you a card on top of that.
Yeah.
So if you imagine a card that could mill you 9 and net you 1 of those 10, well,
Even the worst of the 10.
even the worst. Okay. But when you have more players, and Wizards has, I think, gotten much, much better about this, where they've really, like, the multiplayer designs are very much like, we get it. Like, you're on a table with 4 or 5 other people, or maybe even more. You're having a monster game. This is what can happen. You have Manifold Insights our preview for Commander 2016 is a blue and 2 generic mana for a rare sorcery. You reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and starting with your next opponent in turn order, each opponent chooses a different non-land card from among them. You put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So you can't both eat the cake, and have it, or have it and eat it. But Manifold Insights gives you a pretty fantastic deal for any game that's like 4 players or up. At that point, it's 3 mana to draw 3 cards. Sure, they're the worst 3 non-lands, but the more players, the better the cards get. So this one scales in a pretty dramatic fashion, but unfortunately does not put things in your graveyard, which would be insane.
Yeah, it would be way too insane if it put things in your graveyard. I think that it's a really clever design. It not only does it force you to make interesting deck building decisions, but interesting game creation decisions of trying to get larger games if you have this card in your deck. If you're only playing a 3-person game of Commander, this deck card is significantly worse, and therefore might be a card that you replace in certain games. And I just think it's a super interesting card for a variety of reasons. Not the least of which is that you can also build your deck to be much more land heavy. Especially in a format like Commander, you have super powerful lands that you can take advantage of. In Legacy, there is the lands deck, and so I'm sure that there's an equivalent in Commander to be able to use with Manifold Insights. That maybe you can dig through and find the Punishing Fire, or I don't even know how popular that card would even possibly be in Commander, but something like Life from the Loam. To be able to dig specifically for specific cards, to force your opponents to give you exactly what you need. I think it's a really cool card, and I'm super excited that we got it.
Aaron, how do you feel about old Manifold Insights?
It's a lot. I remember, so I woke up on a Saturday morning, and I think you had emailed this to us, and I had to I remember laying in bed and just trying to play it out in my mind, and I had to physically get out of bed, find a pile of cards, and role play myself actually casting this, and only then did I understand what was going on. But I agree with your sentiment. At least assuming that you're in a pod with 3 other people, you're at least getting 3 cards for 3, which is right around the same level as something like Painful Truth, which is fine. I like that they are sort of working that into this. We're seeing that with the Undaunted mechanic as well, which we might talk about later, in that your cards do different things, or are more effective, or are cheaper with the more people that you're playing Commander with. And I know that personally, I don't think I've ever played with more than a pot of 4, but I would imagine you could do more, can't you?
Oh, of course.
I've played there used to be a format called Emperor that I used to play a lot back when I was a youngin'. Where that was a 3v3 format where you had 1 Emperor in the center and then you had 2 guards on your outsides, and you could only attack basically in a circle. So the 2 guards could attack the opposite guards, and if you as the Emperor wanted to have your creatures be able to attack or target things, you had to, quote, march them. So during your attack step, you would move a creature over to one side or the other, and that would consist of your attack steps that your creatures could do stuff. Yeah. So that was a format that this obviously would do very well in as well. This is you're right. This is a lot. We need some Frank Karsten.
I think the other thing I wanted to close out on too is, we forget sometimes that Commander is oftentimes a political game, and so I think that this is also a really great way to sort of see who's on your side. Where if somebody lets you have, because the opponent gets to choose, which can be a turnoff for some people. We talk about things like Punisher mechanics and how a lot of times letting the opponent choose is a bad deal. And so if you have somebody that's feeling generous and gives you a really good card, you might be inclined to remember that person and maybe not kill them first. And if you get that opponent who gives you garbage, you might make a mental note of that, be like, all right, I'm a come for that ass, and that's fine. Right. But you can kind of determine who's working with you and who's not by playing a card like this.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that you'll get the quote unquote worst, because worst means different things to different people.
Yeah.
You got the one guy playing mono green with 45 creatures in play. You cast this, the first person's like, well, I'm going to lose some of my creatures, but here's your Wrath of God. It's like we need this effect right now, so here you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and ultimately, it feels like a lot of the earlier Commander sets were certainly like you're going to play in 3-person or 4-person pods. Like, that's what Commander is. That's how Commander is defined. And this is very much like the bigger the game, the better the game, the better the effect, the better of the things that you're getting or thought that you were getting or able to afford. The Undaunted mechanic being kind of one of the most obvious mechanics ever, but weird that it took so long to really show up.
And it's a mana reducing mechanic in the line of like Delve or something, which can sometimes get out of hand.
Yeah, but we're talking casual, and
Right.
literally,
This one,
as we'll see in some of these cards, which are ridiculous. Like, doesn't matter. Like, as long as it's not 3 or less mana and busted, aka legacy playable, they can literally do anything they want. Once you get to 4 or 5 mana, it just doesn't matter what you put on the stupid card.
right.
Like, just go crazy. But Manifold Destiny, Manifold. Really?
Manifold, yeah.
Manifold.
Yeah, put it
I
in
got
your
your carburetor
engine
while you vroom vroom with your
car,
manifold.
So
Yeah.
I know literally nothing about cars, so I was unable to formulate a joke.
Wow. It's okay. But we're going to keep going because there are lots and lots
Reuben,
of
that
really
just means
interesting...
that you have to, a wise man once said, you have to know when to hold them and you have to know when to manifold them.
Wow.
I saw it from 10 miles away, and I just waited there for it to hit me. I just
sweet.
basked in the glory.
Wow. Just got there. So, anyway, we're going to move on to some other spoilers. Thank you very much, Wizards, for our exclusive preview.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
As
you.
always. Kynaios, if I'm not butchering that too horribly.
Okay, for those playing along at home who are not able to see our Patreon, we have literally gone over this with Evan a dozen times. Like, and he's still not sure how to say it. Like, look at God. Like,
I just, there's things as a Southern man that you look at, and it's like a word, it's like a letter salad. It's like there's an A in there, and there's a Y for some reason.
There's the problem that Evan is having is the classic. Now, I'm half Greek, so I know this, and my middle name is Vaia. So I know the problem.
I didn't know that was your middle name.
That Southern Americans have with the 3 vowels in a row syndrome, that they just don't know what's happening anymore. They lose themselves completely. So that's the problem that he's having there with Kynaios.
Yeah,
It's very simple.
See, now
but we had to go over this with Tiro, too. Tiro's a 4-letter name, and Evan just can't get it.
Is it Tiro? Is it Tiro? Is it Tiro?
It's Tiro.
Is it? Are we
Like
sure?
Shiro,
Like
yeah.
Shiro.
Now it's like Brian
Kynaios-
Kibler's dog.
Kynaios and Shiro.
This is weird. All right, so Kynaios.
Jesus Christ.
You know what?
Kynaios.
There's Kynaios. It's Kynaios. Can I just?
Kynaios.
Can I just?
Kynaios.
You're killing.
I'm on board with Kynaios.
Jeez.
Nene, that is terrible.
Kynaios. And Toto.
K and T. How
Toto.
about that?
K&T. K&T.
You can't call him Toto.
K&T, oh God, K&T.
You're the worst.
Kynaios. Exactly.
Sorry.
That's the best.
Toto.
All right. The Greek guys
Yeah.
on that card that was on that other card about Meletis are now
the
back.
Guardians
Meletis?
of Meletis.
The Guardians of Meletis. They are.
I thought it was Meletis.
Whatever.
Oh my
We
God!
should
See,
sail at
here
this
we
point.
are again. All right. So anyway, Wizards has made 4-color commanders, like actual factual 4-color commanders for Commander 2016, and they've also made commanders that are 2-color and have partner, which lets you play with 2 commanders as long as they both have partner. So the Guardians of Meletis are every color but black, and they are a mythic human soldier. They're a 2/8, a 2/8. That's a big butt. At the beginning of your end step, you draw a card. Each player may put a land card from their hand onto the battlefield. Each opponent who does not draws a card. So everybody gets something awesome.
I believe they call this a group hug card. That's the term I've seen going around today.
It's group hug. So tell me, is it worth that line of flavor text to not give this card partner? Really? You don't put partner on this card?
Yeah.
Seriously?
And can we talk about this card, though? Like, this is the first queer... There's a lot of layers to this card, which I want to go over. So first and foremost, they are a couple of gentlemen. So they are 2 men who appear to be very much in love. The second layer is that one of them is black. You have interracial queer love, which is fantastic. The third layer of this is you can see that Tiro is holding Kynaios' helmet, so that he can rub his neck or rub his hair. That's the third layer to all of this. The fourth layer is that they're happy. This isn't like a hashtag bury your gays situation where they're like in a terrible war and everything's falling apart around them and everything's just awful. They're happy and they're in charge of this beautiful land and they appear to be living gloriously. And that's really wonderful to see. And lastly, just in case you missed all of the other signs, when you look in the background, the swords are touching.
Oh my God. I cannot believe you ended on that. That's where we were going up the mountain, and then we stopped at the strip club.
There are some people that are just not going to see it.
What?
It's like,
oh man.
And I'm here for it, and I love it.
So,
Wow.
another story-wise, the reason why this is a big thing is because originally when the card Guardians of Meletis was printed, which was originally in Theros as a common, it had a flavor text which sort of sent Tumblr and Reddit into a tizzy, and everyone wanted more of this story, and we finally got some more. And the flavor text is, the histories speak of two feuding rulers whose deaths were celebrated and whose monuments symbolized the end of their wars. But in truth, they were peaceful lovers, their story lost to the ages. And when the card came out, because the Guardians of Meletis in the art are two men, obviously, people were like, is this the first canon gay couple in Magic history? What's the story behind this? We want more. Give us more. And then so now finally in this Commander release, we do have some more, which is pretty cool.
Now I believe there was a lesbian couple from Innistrad. Is that right?
But they're not on a
Shadows,
card, though.
They're not on the
think.
card. But yeah, or maybe from Shadows. So that's
Yeah,
a
if
thing.
you think about it, though, Theros came before Shadows. So.
Oh, absolutely, and they can
Yeah.
certainly put that in a later Commander product because these are the perfect places to put that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And Wizards, just great job. You know what? They never had to do these things. They do these things. They did a great job at it. It's sweet. It's cool. The flavor text is fantastic. The flavor text being, look what we fought for. Look what we built together. I mean, come on. Come on.
And can we just talk about, I want to write a fan fiction with them and Ravos. So for those of you who haven't seen Ravos is sassy. And you can tell
Ravos
that
soul tender. Yes.
you can tell that Ravos is sort of the younger, version, the next generation where Kynaios and Tiro kind of want to settle down and they want a quiet life. And Ravos is like, well, you guys go ahead and do that, but I've got this stash. I'm going to be fierce. And he's going to be partying in the club while the others just sort
Wow.
of, be old and be content. And I'm completely here for it. And so, yes.
It's really good.
Wow.
Yeah. Look at his pose, though. He's just like,
He is. Out there.
It's a heck of a pose. So we're
I
gonna move
also
on.
really
Next
like,
is
I wanted to say that the art itself, beyond having the Guardians of Meletis in the background and beyond just having these two main characters, it's also a throwback to the Anax and Cymede art,
yes.
the original Theros, where Anax and Cymede were leaders of a large civilization as well. They were sort of posed on the left side, looking to the right side of the screen, whereas this is sort of a mirror image of that. And it's just a really cool throwback to that as well. A lot of layers going on here.
Absolutely.
wow, that's super cool. So we're gonna move on now to another 4-color commander, which is Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. Now, when you hear the word Praetor, that should get the ears perked up. You know what I'm saying? Because it is every color but red. Black, blue, white, green for a 4/4 mythic angel horror. It is a legendary angel horror. It is scary. It is, in fact, a Phyrexian angel. Oh my god, it's so cool. It has flying, vigilance, death touch, and lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, which means you get value immediately, you proliferate, meaning you choose any number of permanents and or players with counters on them, and you give another counter to those that are already there. So the artwork here, Victor Adam,
Victor Adami.
Adami, is that right? And well, first of all, it's difficult to read because it's kind of fuzzy. Secondly, I know I'm going to screw it up.
It's English,
He's not
so
exactly
Evan's not
new
great.
here. He's been friends for a while now.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's got letters in it, so it's tough.
it's very tough.
Either way, The art is absolutely freaking gorgeous. I love it. It is amazing. I can't wait till we go back. The Phyrexians have to come back. We've had enough of the noodly appendages. It is time to get where metal and machine and organisms and life come together to a horrific display that is ready to kill somebody and try to break magic again, because Phyrexian mana is busted.
Well, they're never bringing back Phyrexian mana, but the Phyrexians will come back, and it's good to see that Proliferate is going to continue to be a thing. Thematically within the Phyrexians, it's a really the Phyrexians have always sort of been this weird dichotomy of life and death stapled together, and Proliferate symbolically is an ability that perfectly mirrors that weird machine and nature coming together oddness, and Atraxa being able to be your Proliferate commander, basically, if you want. If you have a deck that has a lot of +1/+1 counters or a lot of charge counters of various types, it is exactly the card you want for that type of deck. So and also this card has so many keywords that it can't help but be amazing, I would imagine. Yeah. So I really enjoy this one.
That's awesome. Aaron, how do you feel about the Phyrexian Angel?
When I first saw this card, I immediately thought that she would be the love child of me and Heather Dawn. Like, if Revised Angel and I ever joined forces and made a baby, it would be this one, because I, of course, love the horrors and she loves the angels. And so if you put it together, it would be a thing. And, Reuben brought up a really good point in terms of, like, what horror means. Like, if you look at the card next to it, we're looking at Mythic Spoiler, you see Crom, and Crom is, like, the zombie horror of, like, parts and electricity and things like that. And, when you're on, and then there's, like, the Eldrazi type horror that's, like, lattices and flesh and tentacles and things like that. And then you get on the level of, like, the Phyrexian horror, where it's, like, machines and parts, but not dead parts like a zombie. And, I think I really like the Phyrexian style of horror. And I think that, you're seeing kind of like this spin on like the Chancellor of the Annex, which was like a Phyrexian type angel. And, the helm kind of reminds me of Elish Norn and like the big plates, that's kind of what I thought of. And if I remember correctly, Elish Norn like won the dispute in Phyrexia. Like, she was the last surviving Praetor. So it makes sense that this angel would sort of have like earmarks of Elish Norn. And there's just a lot of callbacks here that I think are really attractive and that I think are great tie-ins if we ever do go back to Phyrexia. I think the card is just fantastic.
Yeah, she gets returned from the graveyard by Bruna and does not get bounced by Thing in the Ice. So everybody is on board. Yeah,
absolutely.
There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. So I'm going to move on to what I feel, and this is because every time I think about this card, it makes me giggle, and it makes me happy, and it just creates joyous moments of opportunity. It is what I would argue is the best multiplayer design of all time. It's called Cruel Entertainment. It is a 1 black, 6 generic mana rare sorcery. You choose target player and another target player. The first player controls the second player during the second player's next turn, and the second player controls the first player during the first player's next turn. On the image itself is a puppet show where the puppet master is, just with the poop-eating grin, if you will, just can't stand it. This card is so awesome. I can't even imagine how much fun it's going to be, but just saying, like, and you go crazy. And then they're going to be mad and kill you. But it's okay, because you can recur this thing. It does not exile itself. Like, you're able to make this thing happen multiple times. You're able to bring it back. Oh, I can't. It's so good. It's so, you mind slaver them, they mind slaver you. You have fun with that.
This is a really cool card. Also, you're right. I hadn't investigated the art, but little purple dude in the back just having so much fun with his toy
puppets. It looks like a real person.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave Palumbo is big on the super realistic people in his art. And everything about this card is a ton of fun. There is no situation in which this card gets cast and everyone in the table doesn't just immediately, like, their eyes go wide and what is going to happen now? And then whoever's casting it, just as soon as it gets put onto the table, everyone at the table is just going to be groveling at their feet, like, please don't mess with me. Or
the politics
please let
of this
me
card.
have his next turn.
Oh my god, it's so good. Yeah. Wizards, you just killed it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's funny, it's like starting to control other players' turns is getting sort of more and more common. Like, Emrakul did it, this did it. Like, I know it's a little strange, but I could honestly see them keywording, like, mind slave your opponent. Like, you control their next turn. It feels almost natural because, again, they're just kind of throwing it out there. It doesn't screw up anything. People get it. They move on. I think R&D is actually going to get a lot more familiar and using it a lot more often. Aaron, how do you feel about this cruel entertainment?
I'm kind of frightened now that you mention it. Like, you mentioned the idea of like Mind Slayer being a mechanic. Like, I'm interested in that, and I think the reason. I think that's not a bad idea, actually. And the reason why is because I feel like it's another one of those things that's very skill intensive. It's very easy to just sort of flood your board with a bunch of white weenies and swing for 15. But, if you're going to get the most out of Emrakul, it's really all about, like, how can you really, screw up your opponent's turn the best? Like something like Scry almost. Scry, in the average player's hands, Scry is fine and Scry does its thing. But if you really know what your deck does and you can sort of plan ahead, Scry is fantastic. And I think it's just one of those mechanics that can really separate, the better players from the okay players. And, I think this is fun. I like my commander to be kind of goofy and kind of where you just do dumb things. And Cruel Entertainment is really dumb, and that's why I like it.
Wow, yeah, well, it's the dumbest card ever.
What I mean by that, though, is like I don't like the kind of commander with infinite combos where it's done by turn 4. I like the games where you're getting to like 9 or 10 lands and you're doing the most impossible things and you're playing creatures that never see play in other formats, but you're able to see them and you're able to use all these mana sinks and just insanity happens. And that's why I like this card, because just getting to turn 7 can sometimes be rare with certain groups, let's be honest.
Absolutely. So, and real quick here, before I forget it, Rebecca Gay, that's Rebecca Guay, pronounced Gay, just so we're clear. Rebecca Gay came back and did some land art. Rebecca Gay, I thought, was gone forever. Like, I thought that there was a bridge burn thing. Like, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't involved. I just hear rumbles here and there going like, man, why doesn't Rebecca Gay make any art anymore? Well, like, she likes naked people. Can't put naked people on there. What is never going to have naked people on it? Land art. So they got her to do land art. Free of boobs.
Not only did they get her, but they got Mark Poole and Kev Walker as the other two to do 5 basic. So you have 15 basic lands from Commander, and all 3 of those iconic, really super spectacular, but not always basic land producing artists who've now made basic lands. As someone who collects a lot of APAC and Euro lands, the Rebecca Gay Mountain and Plains are 2 of the most sought-after ones. The Kev Walker Forest is one of the most sought-after forests. And, of course, Mark Poole, who's, been around fantasy for 35 years and has he's one of these artists that you can tell the difference between Mark Poole 20 years ago and 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and he just come out with something else new here. All of the lands are just super spectacularly beautiful.
Absolutely. So it's a watermark, I think that Rebecca Gay is back illustrating Magic cards. That's amazing. That's amazing. So kudos to Wizards to however they managed to make that happen. That is awesome. I was reading earlier today, Mike Linneman, my buddy Mike, who is like
at Vorthos Mike, the art aficionado of aficionados.
He's also the hunt master of Weens.
He is.
I don't.
Dog.
Because he likes.
He owns at least 3 Weens.
What's the dog's name?
So there's Philip Jenkins, Toblerone, and Milk Dud. And Milk Dud is best dog.
That's the one.
Milk Dud is best dog.
Best dog.
Yeah.
Best dog not close. # wood pet. So my buddy Mike Linneman was noting that Rebecca had actually put those up for sale, for auction. And there currently it went to $15,000 for the set of 5.
Jesus,
which is a lot.
And she decided to not sell them.
Yeah.
Because her other Magic artwork is on sale for like $8,000 for commons you don't remember.
Yeah.
Per common that you don't remember.
Hey.
So $30,000 he notes might not be enough. So, sometimes you got to know what you got and not necessarily give it away for too cheap. And Rebecca Gay knows that her stuff is good. People love her stuff. It's going to be worth money.
Get that coin, girl. I am not mad.
Hold on to it if you have to for a little while, because if commons are going for that land set is going to be amazing.
Get it.
Before we move on from Mike Linneman, Mike and I participate in #SockGame. sometimes. And I have not shown him these socks yet. This one says gin. This one says juice.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Wow.
So and they
Sock
got
game's so
Paisley.
strong. Oh.
Yeah. So hashtag sock game balls in your court.
Oh my God, that sock game is so strong.
My God.
All right, so we're going to move on to our second batch of spoilers. We're only going to do 2 batches of spoilers of 3 each. The second batch begins with Deepglow Skate, a blue and 4 generic mana rare fish that when it enters the battlefield, you double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. It's also a 3/3.
3/3 flyer for 5, pretty strong.
It's a
Can't be
C-Snid.
Revel Arced.
Right. C-Snid that doubles seasons literally everything you want on your stuff. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great, anything that says target any number,
right?
You have to take a second look at just in case, right?
Just target number and then double is just, whew.
Yeah, both of those are dangerous phrases to put on cards. So, for example, with our brand new, Infect Commander Atraxa, this seems like a good follow-up on turn 4 after we've proliferated, or turn 5 after we've proliferated on turn 4. So, unfortunately, it doesn't double the number of counters on players,
right?
Which,
it's true.
Double up your opponent's Infect counters and double up your own experience counters, for example. But, it's still a great card. The art. This is another one of these cards that bothers me sometimes. Like Whippoorwill is a big example of this, which is it looks like this card should be flying, and it doesn't have flying.
Yeah,
that's my only problem. Like I get that it's under the sea.
And the light sources
better.
And the fish are behind it, and nice reference, but it's I don't know. I could see they tried real hard to make it look like it was swimming.
If we're throwing references around, I guess I better double up.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's definitely what you need to do when you play this card.
Double up.
Skate. Double up.
So if you're familiar with Dace Valerian on Twitter, at Dace Valerian, he was the Tumblr representative at the Inventors Fair at PAX this year. And he said that he's going to call this card Doubling Sea Sun.
Okay.
And no one's going to stop him. And I think that's pretty great.
Not bad.
Can't stop, won't stop. The card is super sweet. Now, this is, I think, a good example of a card that, they can make because it's Commander. Because it doesn't really matter that much. It's just a cool effect. It's got crazy things written on it that would be busted in any other format. But whatever, it's Commander, who cares? Selfless Squire is a white and 3 generic mana for a rare human soldier. It's a 1/1 with flash. It's the best Squire ever. It's the bestest Squirest dude ever because when he enters the battlefield, you prevent all damage. When she enters the battlefield, you prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Whenever damage whenever damage that would be dealt to you is prevented, you put that many +1/+1 counters on Selfless Squire. So, that's a whole lot of damage you got coming my way. Sure would be a shame if something were to, happen to it.
Yeah.
It's also, it's not a Draining Welk, right? Draining Welk triggers once, and then that's how big it is forever.
Right,
Selfless Squire can grow in the future with Circle of Protections or what have you, right? Like sets Tigers in the future. This guy's kind of insane. This gal's kind of insane.
This gal is nuts. Wow. That's whenever damage that would be dealt to you is prevented, just period.
Yeah, well, comma, but yes, it's a new phrase. It's a new line of text.
Right. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think that this card, it's 4 mana, and it's a 1/1 that you can be responded to before it gets the counters, but it still would prevent damage. So, unfortunately, the biggest, one-turn damage producers are things like, first of all, Tendrils of Agony, which isn't actually damage, and then, I guess, Sneak and Show, or big creature attacks from things like Death and Taxes, but I don't think that there's a way for this to sneak into Legacy or Vintage, unfortunately. This one was the closest. This one looked like it was the closest one to getting there. To me.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just I'm pretty sure this is more people are just playing Crater Hoofs and being silly with their elf commander decks, and they slam this guy down and look, my Squire's like a 92/92, deal with it.
I could see that. That would be the biggest blowout ever if somebody just made 100 Selfless Squire after getting Praetor hoofed. It'd be so good.
I do want to touch on one more thing, though. We talked about how awesome it is that there's queer people of color and there's queer people being represented here. Let's talk about the women. This set is crawling with awesome female characters. So let's count it off. So we have Atraxa, who's the badass Phyrexian angel. Mm-hmm. We have Cadeli, who's the chosen visionary of Kruphix, Vile Smasher, a female goblin berserker. What? Like, how awesome is that? Tana the Bloodsower, Timna the Weaver, who's a beautiful dark-skinned black woman, Rayhan Lassity Abzan, Saskia the Unyielding, Brea Ethereum Shaper, who I'm convinced is really just Christine Sprinkle, and she needs to get it together and cosplay this.
Nice.
Yeah. We also have the Selfless Squire. We have Akiri, who's the core hook person. Just so many awesome women. Like, in terms of like the gay characters and the female characters, this set is just such a home run when it comes to diversity and other kinds of characters. I'm just so happy.
Yeah, I think that I was trying to identify. In most Magic sets, we always talk about, it's just the standard white dude coming to the rescue. Is there just a standard white dude in this set? I don't think so.
Well, you have Bruce Tarl, but Tumblr started calling him Daddy, which I'm not against. And then there's
he looks like Wario. He just looks like Wario on workout day.
I mean, if you want to know my type, that's that. But you've got Silas Wren, who's you have Silas.
That's
Sidar.
Actually just me. If you look at the art for Silas Wren, that's just me.
You should cosplay that.
Doing the thing
I should definitely.
Yeah.
With the stuff.
Christine and I will both be Ethereum sculptors at a future event.
Wow. So the female quotient is high, and I think that's a good thing, to be able to go like, wait a minute, look at all the females being awesome here.
Women, the gay couple,
Yes.
the young gay man, the old white dudes, the non-humanoids.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal. So, I think that particularly for Commander, I think that that's a spot that you can sort of avoid some of the you know how the internet is, that there's the controversy that always pops up of where the people that describe me, right, that where am I, and there's Jace. Jace is always the main character, right? So now we get to have a lot more main characters, and I'm definitely happy about that. Plus, it's a lot more fodder for Evan's Forgotten Lore series. Mm-hmm. People like Sidar Kondo of Jamora, who we were talking about, you desperately wanted. Silas Wren is Tezzeret's former rival, so you got lots of cool information there. And finally, a Ludovic card. We've been waiting forever for Ludovic.
Yeah.
So and that flavor text is gold.
Yeah.
Which is what?
The flavor text, I just closed the window, but it says something like, you want to know how to be...
Yeah, how does one become a self-taught genius? Naturally, it requires brains.
Yes! Love it.
Oh, it's
Love
so good.
it.
Yeah, Sidar Kondo would have been a huge boon when I was trying to talk about him in my Withlet episode, and I think I had like one image of him only ever on the internet ever. And not even like just like fan art of nobody makes fan art of Sidar Kondo. So like so I just couldn't find anything. I mean, even with Urza, at some point, like I literally had to go find different pictures that people had made of their interpretations of Urza because I just wanted to show something different on the screen. Right. But Sidar Kondo, that's a big deal. He's the guy who raised Gerard and eventually was killed. Essentially saving Gerard's life, saying go run into the forest and get out of here. And then the mob showed up with Volrath, and then they killed him. So it's kind of cool to have that story moment in there. I'm absolutely thrilled by it. So the last thing I want to talk about in terms of spoilers is the lands. They have a few land cycles here. They have the rare Odyssey lands that filter. It makes a blue into a white
Sunscape Prairie and whatnot.
Yeah, Sunscape Prairie, turns a white into a blue-green, stuff like that. Karplusan Forest, the Painland cycle, was the one I have pulled up on the screen here, and that's a big deal because those lands started getting really expensive when colorless started being a big deal.
Eldrazi.
Yeah, so with Eldrazi, being Eldrazi, now they have the new symbol printed, which is kind of neat to see them, with old art and the new colorless mana symbol. They're going to be a lot more affordable now, which is a good thing. People are able to get their sets. There's also the check lands, enter the battlefield, and they'll be untapped as long as
Glacial
you have...
Fortress and friends.
That's correct. So And Murmuring
the
Bosk
Buddy
is
Lance
confirmed.
is that the and Murmuring Bosk, cool.
And Murmuring Bosk is back as well. So that's really cool. Sort of Wizards able to put some really valuable lands in here. I think these are honestly some really fantastic sets. Everything I've seen so far is really cool, fun, interesting designs. Wizards is just like, who cares? We're having fun here. Like, we can have really powerful effects that do whatever we want. We're able to take these characters from years back and just make them because who cares? We're able to do that. Like, I would love them to go back and make a version of Urza before his spark ignited. Make a version of his brother. Like, make that happen.
In Commander, that's the way to be able to do it. You can go back to the old stories instead of having to keep up with the current story. Go back and look at Urza and Mishra and Feldon, who has.
If we're going to go back,
which they did.
We got to have Feather.
Feather again.
Feather needs
from the Ravnica storyline.
Come back and whoop Aurelia's ass.
Well, was Feather the Fireman Angel? I don't know. They say kind of hint at it, or maybe they were. Was she the leader? She was the leader of the Fireman Angels. Is that right?
She was the leader of the Boros Angels, and then she disappeared, and then Aurelia kind of took her place. And people have been clamoring for like a Feather Aurelia showdown for ages.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll go back to Ravnica like present day someday, but I definitely agree that that's another, they're just random bits in the story where there just isn't a card for some reason to represent that person. So I'm super excited.
What I want to do is I want to jump into that big old bath of drama. It's drama time because it's the Magic community. You know what we do? We just, it's drama 30.
We're like TNT. We know drama.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna get crazy up in here. So
the sauna.
We have a few pieces of drama this weekend. The little one, the very tiny one is that Smuggler's Copter was 32 copies in the top of the GP. What was it? 23 copies in the top of the SCG Classic, and
only 16 in the top 8 of the Pro Tour. Only.
And I thought, well, look, we talked about this. I thought that the Pro Tour was going to be like, here's what happens when the metagame reacts, which it did. It's not going to be as oppressive, which it wasn't. And now we're kind of back to the way it was again.
And Etherworks has been like pushed out of the format. Like it's not. It came and then it went.
Well, it's a deck that really, you need that surprise factor. You need the fact that no one really saw it coming, that people aren't really expecting it, and how many people are playing it, and so on and so forth. So that's a thing. But just noting here that there's a road to the point where Smuggler's Copter is too good to stay in the format, and it's starting to travel down that road. I'm not saying it's getting there. I'm not saying we're banning cards. I'm saying that this is the type of results and the type of things you see when things get uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, we're already seeing people testing it, like basically almost exclusively. You're welcome for this, by the way. People are almost exclusively testing Smuggler's Copter for Modern now. Like, let's try Smuggler's Copter in Fairies. Let's try Smuggler's Copter in Affinity. Let's try Smuggler's Copter as our main, like, basically main win condition, like, after sideboard in these Jeskai control decks, where they just want to have, to just activate these Smuggler's Copters with their super cheap little ground blocker creature things, and that's how you get through the air. It's getting to the point where the card is taking over every format. I talked about last week about how it's crazy in Vintage already. It's getting prevalent. It is everywhere, let alone Standard, where it has been at least 50% of every top 8 so far. Those are astronomical numbers. And especially with our new system of cycling sets out, right? We're back to the old system,
right?
Where this is going to be in play for 2 years instead of 18 months. We got another 6 months in addition to whatever we're going to already have. I think that it's very likely that we see a banning of Smuggler's Copter before the end of its time in Standard.
I was even thinking of picking up a playset. I was looking at one of the decks that did well in Providence. It was a black-red zombies list, which is kind of funny. Like, I think it's interesting that zombies have embraced madness better than the vampires have. There are vampires with madness, and I remember when the set first came out, people tried to make black-red vampires happen, and it didn't. But black-red zombies is happening with Scrap Heap Scrounger and Fiery Tempers, and it's glorious. And in all of the lists that I saw, need a play set of Smuggler's Copter, and I swore I would never get a set of it, but I was looking at some lists.
Too good, man.
I was looking at some lists today, and I was like, I do like to draw and discard, so I may have to, woman up and pick up a set. And I was like, are we here? Like, you can't really play standard without it.
It's too powerful to not play. And when you're at that point, and we're just starting, like 2 years of this, man.
It's just the beginning.
Whew.
Although, to be fair, is there ever going to be a better pilot than Thraben Inspector? Like, there's just, that card is apparently
that card's
the
also
business.
bananas.
It's like the best one drop ever.
I love it. As a white weenie player, like from the very moment I started playing Magic, I got my playset of Savannah Lions was my first 4 of. Thraben Inspector being like one of the best cards in the format, the best one white drop. Well, very close.
It's fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure it's the best one. I mean, it's better than Kithian.
It's up there with Mother of Runes.
Okay, sure.
So,
that's bold.
Yeah, I mean, there are some pretty powerful, potent one drops.
That's how good it is. We're like
it's
Mother
amazing.
of Runes, Thraben Inspector, like
right. We're on like Ramosian Sergeant level of power, which is kind of ridiculous. Also, the flavor fail that it requires to have like a 1700s like tri-corner hat farmer person getting into a helicopter and driving it successfully. I'm not sure.
Wow.
I think that there needs to be a ruling that Smuggler's Copter can only be driven by people who
there are several cards that when you think about it, like a Sylvan Chariot. Sylvan Chariot, its toughness, that would be no. But
right.
The bottom line is there are several cards that have no business driving anything.
Sure. And ultimately,
skeletons can't really drive a Sky Sovereign.
A creepy doll climbing in a Smuggler's Copter. No.
Well, I want to put the bow on the Smuggler's Copter and go on to far better and more juicy drama. I will just note that I am totally okay with what has happened. That Wizards tried something new. There's a new card type. It's super exciting. It's super cool. They went too far. They did it before. It's not the end of the world. Like, I don't want this to be like Wizards are, dumb and know what they're doing. Like, no, man, they wanted to make it exciting. They wanted to make sure it was good. And, sometimes you crank it a little too far, I think is what happened. Either way, better drama. Mr. Kent Ketter was on camera and was playing Modern, and his opponent decided to play Rest in Peace, and he had a Conflagrate in his graveyard, and so Kent takes his hand and he puts it on his graveyard. He slides his graveyard away. He takes his hand off. He then decides to put his hand back on, slide it back over. So he moved it, and in the meantime, his opponent's doing stuff, because they played Rest in Peace. They saw Kent reach for his graveyard. This was all in
response to a Rest in Peace. Yeah.
Right, and he saw him do a physical thing. He's like, okay. So he kind of keeps going, right? When he looks up, and Kent has a graveyard. And Kent's like, well, you never announced your Rest in Peace trigger. I'm just going to let you out. So Rest in Peace, when it enters the battlefield, exiles all cards from all graveyards. Is that correct?
I'm familiar with Rest in Peace.
Well, I want to make sure our listeners or particularly the podcast listeners know what card we're talking about. So white and generic mana. It exiles all cards from graveyards. It makes Aaron very sad. But at the end of the day, what you have here is someone made a physical action in response to a card, then decided it was not the right thing because they didn't hear the right thing, and then they put it back. Now, judges called lots of explanations later, and Kent is given the ruling that his graveyard stays because his opponent didn't announce the trigger. I got to tell you, I was one of those guys. I was one of those PTQers that you just got to be hard-nosed. If you're just hard-nosed enough, and if you just keep them there, and you just got to keep them honest, and it doesn't mean, who cares if they don't know the intricacies like you know the intricacies? You're going to make them stick to it, and they didn't do a thing, or they didn't say a thing, and they didn't make the gesture the right way. And I could never go full tilt. I knew players who could go full bore, level 10, rules lawyer action. I mean, make no mistake, this is literally textbook rules lawyering. It is, I was doing a thing, they largely interpreted it as as things happening the way they're supposed to happen. Then I decided they weren't happening because they didn't happen the way that I expected them to, or the rules are written, and okay. So Reddit lost its collective mind, which I can certainly imagine the pitchforks and whatnot, and they whipped themselves into a frenzy. Card Hoarder wrote a statement on Reddit, very long statement, where at the end of the day they were like, okay, that's a thing. we as a team have talked about, rules lawyering, and man, that was terrible.
Basically that shruggy, the shrug that you make with like.
I mean, it was a thing, and so like, and I'm not saying throw to the wolves. I'm not saying that people can't make mistakes. I'm saying that I understand both sides of this story, because I was hanging out with guys like that who are not technically, legally within the confines of the rules doing anything wrong, quote unquote. They're just trying to play by the rules of the game. So when you hate the lawyers who can work their way through the legal system because you may not understand or like their methods of doing so, then you have the rules lawyers of Magic working their methods, getting the result that they want, even though you may not like the way they do it. What happens there? Like, morally, ethically, you have an entire player base now who essentially, is judging you one way or another. Either, thinking that, you're a genius because you found a way out of getting your graveyard exiled, or that, this is terrible and you should feel bad and everything is bad and here's my pitchfork and let's do this. So, Reuben, tell me, because you've certainly hung out with a lot of high level, by the nose, make it happen, very high on the tournament success rate, because they may have not been as cordial. They not have been as giving. When somebody doesn't do a thing the right way, they never give an inch. Tell me about that world that you've been involved with.
What we've got here is a failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach. So you get what you got. Sorry. So I got a little too cool hand Luke there. All right.
I still can't believe you're wearing that thing.
Take this off. It's too distracting.
It was very Island of Dr. Moreau.
He said he wanted to bathe in the drama, so I got the towel.
It's true. Got a little bathing.
So in any case, I have a ton of experience with, when I was very, very young, playing on the Junior Super Series, this was extremely common. Perhaps more so than is current day, partially because it was a long time ago, and also partially because, we were children. We hadn't had an education yet. So we didn't know that there were things like social norms and gratitude and reciprocation and things like that. We were just out for what's ours, right? So it's a little bit of a different culture in that sense, but it's still a part of specifically the PTQ structure or culture from several years ago, back when PTQs were PTQs. Hashtag make PTQs great again. Where you're just out for number one, right? So you are like, what did you say exactly? What were the words you used, right? So I put my creatures out in front of another creature, and you don't order your blocks. They're staying in the order that I put them out there in, and then we're calling a judge, and then we're going to have the judicial system sort this all out, right? This is, if you're not watching out for yourself, who's watching out for you? So this is just a part of the culture that I grew up in.
Right.
So seeing this didn't surprise me.
No, absolutely not.
And I don't think he got a lot of flack for this. People are like, oh, pros shouldn't behave like this, particularly on camera. Think of the children, or whatever people think. I don't see that. On the one hand, you're right. You want them to live up to a higher standard. But on the other hand, the rules of the game dictate that what he did was not perfectly, but it was acceptable. So the best way to defend against things like this is to yourself be on the same level of rules lawyering, and make sure that you announce all your triggers. Just be very careful. There's nothing that I think that happened here that was very specifically thought out ahead of time.
No.
Kent is going to be like, I'm going to get this guy. No. He's looking out for number one, like I was always taught to do. There was no complete communication of what was happening, and the game progressed to a point where the other player was like, oh, I just sort of assumed that my opponent, who certainly doesn't have my best interests at heart because they want to win a game of Magic, would just do me a solid and announce my trigger for me. That's the way I look at it. I'm perfectly happy to be wrong there. I envision a world in which everyone is like, oh, I'm terribly sorry. You've forgotten your rest in peace trigger. That's not the world we live in. So, that's the way I look at it.
Right. So the acknowledgement. So while it's acceptable in the rules, do you feel the moving of the graveyard was not the acknowledgement of the trigger?
So
just you, not that you're a judge in this scenario. It is if you were there, do you feel that it's acknowledged it?
I mean, if I were there, yes. So in several episodes ago, we talked about the Borborygmos issue, where somebody announced Borborygmos, right? I named Borborygmos. You didn't name Borborygmos engaged. Gotcha. This is you didn't announce your trigger. Gotcha. Right? This is pretty close.
Sure.
You think?
I disagree with that, because I was actually for that. And you're anti this?
It's a little bit different for me because of physical aspect. So, Aaron, you have yet to share your thoughts on this one. How do you feel? Where are you at on here?
So, I find it really interesting and almost ironic because I've been a longtime Dredge player, and a lot of people like to describe Dredge as playing a different game than their opponent. They like to say that we're not really playing Magic. And I find it ironic that in Kent's case, with the rules lawyering and the angle shooting, he really was playing a different game. When you are doing something like that, you're not winning through conventional means. You're not necessarily winning simply by taking your opponent from 20 to 0. You're not necessarily winning because you drew your entire deck and threw it at your opponent, like if you were playing Storm or Ad Nauseam. You are winning because you were able to find a loophole, or you were able to argue your way out of something. And so you're essentially not playing Magic, quite frankly. You're playing a different game at that point. And being a longtime Dredge player, I know that my deck is not popular. I know there are a lot of people who don't like my deck, and there's a lot of ways that the deck is broken, quite frankly. And so when I play Dredge, I try to be as open and as clear as possible. Like when I'm playing Icarids, I will say Icarid eating Thug, Bloodghast triggers, this is what I'm dredging, Dredge 6. I try to be as above board as possible because I know that there's a lot of room to abuse that if I really wanted to. And so to see this happen was very disappointing for me, because I would like to think that, we are better than this, I've also never tried to argue my way out of a Rest in Peace. I've played graveyard-themed decks since Return to Ravnica, and when I see a Rest in Peace, I know that I'm going to game 3, or I know that I'm signing the slip. I've never thought to wait for a trigger. It's simply the opponent says Rest in Peace, and I sign the slip. I've never waited for there to be more. I think if that was going to be Ken's approach, I think that touching the graveyard is where I sort of lost faith in that, where if you really are waiting for a trigger, they play Rest in Peace. You wait for that, and if they don't say it, okay, fine, then business as usual. But in my mind, touching the graveyard, you acknowledge that trigger. That was the acknowledgement of the trigger for me, and the going back is sort of what lost me on that. And like I said, it's just not the game that I would prefer to play. It's not the way that I would prefer to win the game. I think more importantly, there's a lot of room for discussion, which we'll certainly touch on with the Oliver 2 thing that we're going to talk about a little later. But it's things like this that keep bringing us back to the larger discussion of there are so many loopholes in this game, and if we're not going to ever talk about closing them, or if we're not going to somehow work on these rules issues that have been around forever, people are going to climb through those loopholes. And if the organization at large sees no problem with that, then what can you do? It's
right. So to be clear, if I were in that situation and I played Rest in Peace and my opponent moved their graveyard with their hand out of their graveyard, out of their graveyard to exile, that to me is they acknowledge the trigger.
Yeah.
And I would have absolutely lost my mind.
Oh,
if
yeah.
someone tried to rules lawyer me out of that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
No.
And look, I've hung out with Kent before. He's not like this horrible person. He's just a guy who is doing his best to perform at the highest level that he can. In that he says, well, this is part of the way you do that. It's not premeditated. It's just
I would have behaved in exactly this personally, and you can call me a bad person for this or whatever. If I were in Kent's opponent's seat, I would have behaved in probably similar to almost the exact same way up until the point of noticing what had happened. And if I were in Kent's seat, I very likely would have behaved in the exact same way, because both players have their own image of how the game is going on. Now, if I were in Kent's opponent's seat, I would have certainly said, no.
Yeah.
And then been real mad and then might have flipped a table. I would have checked with the directors first to make sure it's okay for me to do that.
Which is fine, but
not okay with what ended up happening.
Right. Well, I mean, I just personally, I can't. It hurts
It's
me.
not.
But it's
This
not.
just so the fact that he. This is such a fine line,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not cheating, technically.
We can't all play on Magic Online. If we could all play on Magic Online, that trigger would have happened. Letting people miss mandatory triggers is already a weird thing that happens. But look, ultimately, there's a lot of gray areas. We got to keep moving. There's no clear answer.
I know, but this is such a weird, okay.
So either way, that happened. Feel free to share your comments in whatever social media platform you feel is appropriate.
Yeah.
Go nuts.
Feel free to yell at me on Twitter about my opinions.
Well,
everyone else does.
So Reuben,
they don't yell at me because I have them all blocked, Reuben.
Nice, including the Bob Ross account. You know, because you got to keep that happy, joyous, happy little Magic cards down.
You know, it's funny. Ropo Rosewater posted a card the other day that was something like Target Graveyard gets something, and everybody tagged me in it. And they're like, "Aaron, did you see this?" And I was like, "Oh hell!" I was like, "I better unblock Robo Rosewater so I can
Why do
see
you
what
block
this is."
Robo Rose like it's going to
now.
attack you or harass you with its random cards? Oh.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
pesky.
Oh, anyway, so Reuben, can you explain to us a little bit about what happened to Mr. Oliver 2? Is that how you say his last name?
Oliver 2.
Okay.
At the risk of being yelled at for more stuff, I guess.
Well, you want to read Wizard's magical statement there?
I got the statement. At the end of round 15 of Grand Prix Providence, both Oliver 2 and his opponent were disqualified for bribery. The official statement from head judge Stevens Wanger reads, "Just after the round began, 2's opponent conceded to him. We investigated the concession because a judge nearby heard the two of them mentioning PayPal. After the players were interviewed separately, each gave a version of their conversation that did not match the others. Furthermore, in 2's narrative, he had begun the conversation by establishing that he was interested in the pro point while his opponent was not. Then he asked his opponent for a prize split. These two statements in combination created the strong implication that 2 desired his opponent to concede and that there was a financial benefit, the prize split, for the opponent to do so. Under official policy, this implication qualifies as bribery."
Wow.
So he got D2'd?
He got D2'd. The mighty Ducks.
Wow.
So
that was kind of savage.
yeah, so this is another thing that I'm very, very, very familiar with, which is the end of tournament announcement where everyone's like, "Hey guys, don't make any deals while we can hear you." It's like, it's super frustrating. It's basically official Wizards policy to
like wink
wink nudge nudge, go to the bathroom or the parking lot to make these deals if you're making deals. Like, this has always been a central part of the competitive, again, back to the PTQ days, a very central part of the competitive atmosphere. Some people need, this is the reciprocation culture again, and it gets to the point where, I will concede to people and not even expect anything. Like, I'm not going to have a meeting. Like, I conceded to Jarvis Yu maybe 18 months ago because he needed gold, and what was I going to do with the pro point? And I was just like, "You need points? All right, happy birthday." And then I just left, right? But if there was a situation where one of us needed the points or something else, the rules are written in such a way that it behooves us to make a deal somewhere else. Like, it's very strangely written. So the problem is that Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering say they don't want this to happen and then don't actually put any punch behind the words.
Yeah.
If deals occur. The rule is written in such a way that the deals only mean anything in terms of being disqualified from a tournament if it's overheard. So it's just a very weird.
Yeah, and for those who aren't aware of sort of that type of high level play, there is this kind of odd, hey guys, you can't offer a thing for a stuff. You know, if we hear you, you're going to be in big trouble and whatnot. They used to be way more adamant about this. There was a point in time in which I got to the finals of a PTQ and the judge followed me and the guy into the bathroom.
I love it.
Wow.
Not kidding. We're just in there. He's about, you know, and then the guy. I mean, it still happened. It doesn't matter. You know, it's just it's whatever whatever code you had to drop. Now, look, man, this is just real talk. Like, people can imagine that this bribery stuff doesn't happen. These deals don't happen. People don't give percentages of themselves away. It happens all the time. And so, you know, the guy wanted, and this was back for Pro Tour Yokohama, and I wanted to take the Magic Show to Japan, and he was like, it's, you know, $600 and it's yours. And I'm like, I ain't got $600, man. Sorry. And his deck was way better than mine, and he crushed me. So that was it. And he didn't go to Japan, but we won't talk about that.
Oh man.
Yeah. Ooh, just the ultimate daggers. Regardless, so this is the stuff that happens. And so, Reuben, why don't you give the folks at home the how-to version as to how this happens?
This can only end. You're telling me to tell the people at home how to skirt the rules?
No, I'm telling you to tell
Sure.
them what happens in the real world that people may use to their advantage or say
Sure.
to get the result that they want.
All right, I got a good street savvy score, right? I got a high charisma. So we're going to work through this. We're going to workshop this, audience.
You're going to roll
all
that
right?
crit, bruh.
So that you don't get Oliver Tood, this is what's going to happen. Evan, you're going to play the part of somebody who has a win in, or this is the PTQ finals, or whatever.
Okay.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Reuben. Are you planning on going to the X tournament that this qualifies for?
Nope. I'm just here to have fun.
Boom. So awesome. I would like to go to this tournament. So I would plan on going to it. So would you be interested in conceding to me?
I'd consider it. Yeah, I'd think about it. Sure.
Okay. Well, think about that. I'm going to use the restroom.
Okay.
I'll be back.
All right.
And then he stays there, and I go to the bathroom, or he does something else. He like goes and says, "Hey, Judge, I got to go smoke a cigarette," or whatever. That's what happens in the real world. You know, I've heard of many stories. For example, there's I don't want to name names of this story, but it's hilarious. Nothing was wrong here of the story I'm about to tell, but it's just a very funny story of two players met in a PTQ finals. One of the players had never played in a PT before and was very nervous. At this point is a PT regular, but at this point was a small child, came with his dad, and was like, "Hey, so I know you're already qualified for the next Pro Tour. Would you concede to me so that I could go?" And then, like, a bunch of judges are like hovering, waiting for like vultures, waiting for someone to say something wrong. And the pro that's been to the Pro Tour a bunch is like, you know, he's a cool customer. He's like, "Nah, man, I want the plane flight." And then he's like, "Okay, well, I really want to go. Give me a second. I have to go talk to my dad." And then he like goes outside and talks to his dad while Pro is still sitting in his seat. He goes out and then comes back and sits down in his chair, and then all the judges are just like, it's like waiting, like ready.
They hover right over him.
And now this is like hearsay to the fourth degree. From what I understand, the words that were said were, "My dad tells me that I am allowed to offer the maximum amount legal under the rules for you to concede to me."
What?
Which is 0. And the pro goes, "Yeah, deal." And that's the kind of verbal hoops you have to jump through in order to not get DQ'd. So
now there are prize splits doable in the finals now. They did finally relent on prize splitting the final. As I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the only thing that you can do that is okay to do prize split wise, quote unquote.
By the way, this doesn't exist in any other game. Like, I'm at a poker tournament right now. They just, like, the floor staff will help you with prize splits. They will be like, "All right, here's a calculator. Here's how you do the prize," if you ask them. Like, this happens nowhere else. So it's like,
funny.
really, And the problem, my biggest problem with it is that this is what we're DQing, and not DQing people who are under investigation for cheating. So I would be much more okay with Kent Ketter being DQ'd than Oliver too. Even though I don't think what Kent did was illegal or cheating in any way, I would still be more comfortable with that than with this, personally.
Yeah, I was really surprised, so when I was researching this for the show, I was really surprised at how nobody was really talking about the Oliver 2 thing. It didn't get nearly as much press as Ken Ketter did, and when I started looking at people's social media accounts, it seemed like this was just sort of an open secret, like Reuben said, where, people have been doing this forever, and Oliver's sort of new to this. Like, he's had a very big year, but that he might not necessarily have been really hip to the lingo. If I can humor you with a terrible metaphor for a second. When I was in my early 20s, I used to work at an adult bookstore, and we used to sell tobacco pipes. And there's
the tobacco pipes.
Tobacco pipe. And there's this plausible deniability there where as long as you don't say anything stupid or you don't imply that you're going to use your pipes for some sort of nefarious purpose, I can sell you a pipe. I even give you a little disclaimer with some free tobacco on it and tell you to have a great day. But every once in a while, you would get that idiot that would walk in and say, well, I'm going to go make brownies or I'm going to go get faded. And at that point, it was like,
bongs at?
Right. And so at that point, I would have to cut them off because you've sort of ruined the illusion. I can't say that anymore because you ruined it. And when I first saw this and when I started hearing things from you, Reuben, and other people, that's what it reminded me of, and that this is okay as long as you use the right terminology, as long as you keep up the plausible deniability. And unfortunately, Oliver wasn't hip to it, and he said the wrong thing. He said bong, and he got kicked out. And I had no idea. I had no idea that this was so common. I had no idea. I just, I'm not in that subsection of people. I mentioned how I've never thought to argue a rest in peace. I've also never even remotely thought of offering somebody something. It's always just been, I hear that announcement and I don't even go near it. Like, I clam up. I would never think to do such things. I have no idea.
We now know that you don't say bomb in an airport and you don't say PayPal in the last round of a tournament. You just don't do it.
You don't say bong in an
adult bookstore,
a head shop,
right?
Yeah.
Don't do that.
You don't reference PayPal in a Grand Prix setting.
It was, but I had no idea that it was this common, and so it was very interesting to me as somebody who has never reached those heights before that this is just an open secret that everybody does it.
Oh, I mean, it's, again, then look, I love Magic culture. That's why I do what I do. It's why I started doing the Magic shows, because I love it. This isn't a nice part of it. This is the part where, like, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody really explain it. People get burned randomly all the time. Like, it's a thing that
people get turned off of the game from this kind of stuff too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine? Like, now he gets DQ'd. They're going to have this investigation thing. He's going to be banned for some amount of time. Like, that is going to take maybe, who knows? I mean, but if he is, and even if he isn't, there's some amount of wind out of the sails that happens here. But regardless, the point is, I'm serious. This has been happening for as long as Magic tournaments have been happening, like, that have things that qualify for other things. I've seen it happen. So, it's unfortunate, and
man, this turned into the seedy underbelly episode. This was awesome.
So seedy.
I mean, you are in Reno, Nevada. Come on.
It's true.
Wow.
Notable hive of scum and villainy.
So we've reached the end of our program, but I want to really quick touch on my Pass the Salt segment for today, because I ran a Twitter poll and I wanted to talk about it. So the thing for me that just kind of came up was, Rebecca Gay did those artworks, right? She did those basic land artworks, and I was like, wow, that is absolutely amazing. And, is there a way for us to get more of that incredible artwork? Is there a way for artists to be able to show you more of the landscape of this world, of the way that these people spend all this time? Is there a way to not get rid of, like, half the card, so you could have both halves to show you the world in which that you're exploring in the game? So I think basic land artworks that are not full art are a mistake. And I feel that Wizards is going to look back on this many years from now when they finally go, look, yeah, we thought it was we kept saying it was a thing to make it special, and yeah, it was special for a while, but we kind of kept doing it, and they kind of kept doing it, and then they had like this weird split when they would do it, like they actually would do it when we had Battle for Zendikar, but then oops, this one product still has half art lands, which is so ridiculous. I just can't understand it. So, there was a world where we had white bordered base sets, and I lived in that world, and it wasn't the worst thing ever. No one really had this crazy problem with it. It was just kind of expected. It was understood. It was a thing that the advanced sets get the black borders, and the core sets, which are the reprints, get the white borders. Okay, whatever. And then finally, Wizards was like, you know what? We're gonna put black borders on. You know why? Because it's not ugly. And everyone's like, yeah, you know what? It looks a lot better now that it's not ugly. That's weird. And if you could see, 50% more of Kaladesh on those basic lands, what else would you be able to show? What more culture would you be able to see? Like, how much more could the artist really delve into what was going on in that world and really getting the most out of your world building? The stuff that they work so hard for. Like, this is graphic design from 1993. Let's keep this in mind, all right? This heritage that you're trying to pull all the way down 20-something years later. Like, it's okay to change because people have seen full art lands are amazing. And if it's a problem where you can't see a mana symbol or whatever, make it bigger. Like, is that really what's holding us back here? I understand that the party line is that they're unique and they're special when they only do it every once in a while. And my party line is, for God's sakes, they're ugly and they're unnecessary, and every time you do any sort of extended artwork on a land, it looks amazing and it makes the set shine because of it. Don't you like that? Don't you appreciate that? That's where I'm at. So last bit before I hand it off, I ran the poll, and the poll, I was like, look, do you guys feel like it should be, all extended art or only sometimes, or they don't care? Well, 10% don't give a crap. So 1 out of 10 of over 1,000 votes, 1 out of 10 don't give a crap. 42% want only extended art on basic lands. However, 48% being outvoted here democratically. Sometimes extended art, they like their sometimes extended art versus their all the time extended art. And in one way, I wish I had put the word basic in there. I did not put the word basic.
Sure. Yeah. But that was probably the
and I
basic.
I know, right? I was so basic, I forgot the word basic. And so that may have skewed things, but regardless, I'm happy to be outvoted. That's okay. But I just feel for the good of the game, for what they're doing so hard to work so much on world building and make these places unique and make them resonant, to take all that space away from an artist is painful, because you see how good it is when they don't.
I think that even if it is a sometimes thing, more often than they currently do it. Like, I get that why they wanted to save it for Zendikar, because Zendikar is the lands matter world.
Right.
I get that. But once you started the chain reaction of taking a basic land that originally had the text box and art and type line and all of the exact same things as a normal Magic card, with the sentence tap, add one white mana symbol to your mana pool, and then changed that to just a big mana symbol. Once you've started down that path, why are you stopping here rather than stopping here? I don't get why we need this big giant text box with no flavor text, with no rules text, and just a big stamp in the middle. I don't see the purpose of that. This feels like a weird halfway house situation where we're halfway in between where we started and where we should be, and now we have this graphic design nightmare happening where we're just printing cards that have a stamp in the middle of them for no reason.
Aaron?
I agree with you.
Aaron, am I totally wrong here?
No, I'm just not as passionate about this as you are. Like, I don't think you're wrong or you're right. I have heard some feedback from people, particularly with like learning disabilities. Like I've heard from some folks that have like autism or ADHD, and they've indicated that they prefer the half art lands because they're able to easier determine what kind of lands you're dealing with, what kind of mana they're able to make. I've also heard that for newer players, it's attractive. I've heard some people describe the full arts as sort of being next level. And for, the average person on the street, it's easier for them to sort of, correlate or identify the lands that way. And I'm fine with, I think I did voted in that poll, and I think I was kind of like fine with like 50-50, where I don't think we should completely eliminate the half arts, but I do think we should be seeing more of the full arts than we do. And I'm cool already. I already have my full art Zendikar, so I'm cool.
Well, sure.
Right behind you.
It's just with extended art as a sometimes food, you have you have sort of this, this kind of feast and famine thing where it's like, well, okay, everything's full art, now nothing's full art. Well, some of it's full art, but sometimes. And then, and I've heard multiple people in the chat on Twitter, they're like, look, I bought the fat pack because they have the half art lands, and half art lands is just where it's at. And that's totally fine. If you dig it, that's okay.
Whatever you're into.
It's whatever you're into. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I don't like the text box. If we're going to keep the half art lands, do something with the text. Put the put flavor text in there. Do something.
Yeah, you're able to use that resource if you want to, but either way, it's something that I felt like it needed some attention, because Wizards just kind of says like, well, yeah, but it's sometimes okay. See you later, and then they do something weird where they don't make all of it extended art, which kind of makes me sad. But we're going to turn the corner here as I finish editing the thing to the finisher. So the finisher this week, as I pull it up here, well, next Monday is Halloween. It's the best holiday on the calendar. Kids get to play dress up, adults get to drink while playing dress up, and for one day a year we all decide to ignore the don't take candy from strangers rule, because who cares?
Yeah.
Halloween is also the one time a year American popular culture really celebrates Black's selection of the color pie. So in that vein, what is the scariest story you know, Reuben?
I wish I had a flashlight. On a dark and stormy night, a group of kids showed up to a spooky comic book shop. They asked the store owner if they had Friday Night Magic, and the store owner said, "No, we only have Yu-Gi-Oh!"
Wow. Aaron?
Yu-Gi-Oh players are pretty gross, though. Like, we have a couple of so F&M at my local game store comes after Yu-Gi-Oh, and they're like hyenas from Lion King. They're just these loud, gibbering, humping masses that just ugh.
Wow, we lost at least 10 viewers.
Wow, just insta crap on a community. I got it. We're good. we're okay. So, Aaron,
okay,
scary story.
Not far from here, on a night very much like this one, during a full moon, zombies began rising from their graves, shambling towards the local town. And then some jerk played Rest in Peace, and everyone lived happily ever after, or whatever, I guess.
Wow. Just kind of, it's all done there.
Rest in peace, man.
Yeah. Let's see, I don't know, does this work? It's like, yes.
Ooh, I love that.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Well, in 4 days, each of my 5 children will each have a pillowcase full of sugar bombs. They'll be eating them all. And that's the scariest damn thing I've ever heard of.
That was honestly terrifying.
Yes.
Thank you.
You only have 5 kids?
Just the 5.
Okay.
Only that. But that does end another episode of Magic Mics. I want to thank you guys for joining me here. Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Reuben, as always.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to move on here to our final slide. Again, thank you guys very much for watching Magic Mics. I want to thank my co-hosts, Aaron and Reuben. You guys for watching, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicscast, and on Reddit at reddit.com/magicmics. Nope, reddit.com/r/magicmics, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.